श्री गुरु गरंग गंडाविका गिरिधारी राधा विनो बिहारी जीव की जय निथि लील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिला भक्तिवेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथि लील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिला भक्तिवेदांत त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथि लील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिला भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्ति विज्ञान भारती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्ति वैभवपुरी गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल गौ गोविंद गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज शिल प्रभुपाद की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्ति रक्षा श्रीधा गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्णु विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्ति श्री रूप सिद्धांति महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्णु विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्ति दायित्व माधव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्णु विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्ति प्रमोद पुरी गोस्वामी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्णु विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमान शिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती प्रभुपाद की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम परमहंस श्री गोकिशोरदास बाबूजी महाराज की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम सच्चिदानंद श्री भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय निथिलील प्रविष्टम वैष्णव सर्व ब्रह्म श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय श्री गौरी वेदांताचार्य श्री भरतदेव विभूषण प्रभु की जय श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर की जय श्री नारथम श्यामानंद श्रीनिवास प्रभु ट्राय की जय श्री कृष्णदास कविराज गोस्वामी की जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ सत गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामदास श्री गौर प्रसाद वृंद की जय नामचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तविंद की जय श्री अंतदीप मायपुर समन्तदीप कुद्रुमदीप मध्यदीप कुलदीप ऋतुदीप जनदीप मौद्रुमदीप विद्वाद विपात्मकशी नवदीप धाम की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपी गौ गोवर्धन द्वादश वर्णात्मक श्री ब्रजमंडल की जय श्री श्याम कुंज राधा कुंज मुन गंगा तुलसी भक्ति देवी की जय श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाय की जय गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्र जी की जय नृसिंह भगवान की जय भक्त प्रवेश श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय चार संप्रदाय की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय सामगत भक्त वृंद की जय निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल। So गुरुदेव कृपा करके गुरुदेव कृपा करके मुझको अपना लेना गुरुदेव कृपा करके मुझको अपना लेना मैं शरण परा तेरी शरणों में जगा देना मैं शरण परा तेरी चरणों में जगा देना चरणों में जगा देना गुरुदेव कृपा करके मुझको अपना लेना करुणानिधि नाम तेरा करुणा बरसाओ तो सोए हुए भाग्यों को हे नाथ जगाओ तो हे नाथ जगाओ तो मेरे नाव बबर डोले उस पार लगा देना मेरे नाव बबर डोले उस पार लगा देना गुरुदेव कृपा करके अपना लेना। तुम सुख के सागर हो, भक्ति के सहारे हो। तुम सुख के सागर हो, भक्ति के सहारे हो। मेरे मन में समाये हो, मुझे प्राण से प्यारे हो। मेरे मन में समाये हो, मुझे प्राण से प्यारे हो। मुझे प्राण से प्यारे हो, मुझे प्राण से प्यारे हो। नित्य माला जपो तेरी, मेरे दोष भुला देना। नित्य माला जपो तेरी, मेरे दोष भुला देना। गुरुदेव कृपा करके मुझको अपना लेना। गुरुदेव कृपा करके मुझको अपना लेना। मैं संतों की सेवक हूँ, गुरु चरण की दासी हूँ। मैं संतों की सेवक हूँ, गुरु चरण की दासी हूँ। नहीं नाथ भुलाना मुझे, इस जग में अकेली हो। नहीं नाथ भुलाना मुझे, इस जग में अकेली हो। इस जग में अकेली हूँ, इस जग में अकेली हूँ। तेरे द्वार की भिखारी हूँ, नहीं दिल से भुला देना। तेरे द्वार की भिखारी हूँ, नहीं दिल से भुला देना। गुरुदेव कृपा करके मुझको अपना लेना। गुरुदेव कृपा करके मुझको अपना लेना। जय गुरुदेवा, जय गुरुदेवा, गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा, जय गुरुदेवा, जय गुरुदेवा, गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा। जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा, प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा, जय प्रभुपदा, प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा। गुरु परंपरा, गुरु परंपरा, परंपरा गुरु परंपरा, गुरु परंपरा, गुरु परंपरा, परंपरा गुरु परंपरा। नित्य गौर हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, गौरा हरि बोल, नित्य गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल। Premanande, Haribol.
Thank you, Radhika, Didi. Thank you, Puja, Didi, Haribol. Thank you. Dandavat Maharaj, Dandavat. Vancha kalpa trubis cha, kripa sindhu cha, vatitanam bhavinabhyo, vaishnavabhyo namanamaha. Omigyan Tirumandasya, Yanjana Salakaya, Chakshunritam Yena, Tashmai Shri Guru Namaha, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadata Shivasadi, Gaura Bhaktivedanta, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Welcome, brothers and sisters, uncles, aunties. Welcome, all beautiful devotees, to our fifth glorification of Gurudev, the fifth of 63, all the way through. We're sort of getting a build up now to 2021, and we're getting extra fuel in our tank because now is the first glorification of Gurudev for Kartik. I was thinking about this earlier and how it's like every week with all these offerings, a new we're together, we're creating a new garland every week to put around Gurudev's neck. And I also wanted to say to everybody who comes, it's not only the speakers who are on that garland, but it is important in the listening of the Harikataras as much service as in the speaking, the Shravan and the Kirtan. So everybody here, so grateful because you are enabling mine and everybody else's participation. So we are all garlands on that flower every single week. So every time you come, these garlands are building up on Gurudev's neck and they're getting more and more, they're embellishing his beauty more and more. It's a very beautiful thing. So you can imagine what it's going to be like by next year. Just a couple of small administrative things. Just a reminder for anybody who hasn't been on this glorification weekly program, we are departing from the usual etiquette in that we are both mixing up less senior and more senior speakers, and they're not necessarily in the correct order each week. And that's because of time zones and technological issues. So forgive us for the slight deviation, but it's in order to make the whole program work over the full year. And this week, in order to enable our beloved Sripad Bhaktivedanta Bon Maharaj to speak, we've brought the schedule forward to 11 a.m. UK time, but the normal time, to remind you all, is always 12 noon. So this is the exception, not the rule. Today we have an amazing, beautiful repertoire of great speakers. We have Sripad Bhaktivedanta Bon Maharaj leading off, followed by our beloved God brother, God uncle, Sriman Raghunatha Prabhu, and then Sriman Balabhadra Prabhu, and then Srimati Lavanga Mata Didi, and then finally from the United States we have Sriman Raghava Prabhu. So pretty early there, so we're very grateful for him coming. And lastly, before we start and I hand over to our beautiful Bon Maharaj, just a reminder, if everybody can keep themselves on mute, because we want to hear the Harikatha and keep the airwaves nice and clear. So I will follow my own request and mute myself and hand over to Maharaj. Haribol Maharaj, Dandavat.
Om Agyan Timirandrasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmitang Jena Tasmai Sri Guravi Namaha Guravi Gaura Chandraya Radhika Tadalai Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo 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 Mahavadannaya Krishna Premo Pradayate कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिसे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। ओम वृंदावै तुलसी देवै प्रिया वै केशवस्य च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्तवत्यै नमो नमः। भक्ता विहीना अपराध लक्ष्य क्षिप्ताश्च कामादि तरंग मध्य कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृंदे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं। भजामि राधां अरविंद नेत्रां स्मरामि राधां मधुरस्मितास्यं वदामि राधां करुणभराद्रा ततो ममानस्ति गतिर्न कापि। हा देवी काकुभर गद गद अद्य वाचा जाचनि पत्ते दंडुटार्ति अश्व प्रसाद मुदस्य जनस्य कृत्वा गंधर्विके निजगणे गणनां विदेहि। अंगश्यामुलि छटा मंदे कृतेन्द्रीवरं जड्डं याजुगुरुरुचि संपट्टं वरस्य श्रिया वृंदावन निवास तुलसद्धाम दामोदरम राधा स्कंदन विसृज्जलो भुजं ध्यायं सुदामोदरम। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि तया विना एते विज्ञायते राधे तं नयामि चरणान्तिके। वंशी विभूषित करान्नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरादुर्न बिंब फलादृष्टात् पूर्णेन्दु सुंदर मुखादरविंद नेत्रात् कृष्णात् परम तत्त्वं किमपि अहं न जाने। न विजाचे राज्यं न च कनकमाणिक्यं न विभवं न जाचं ब्रह्मं सकलजनकामं परवधूं मे सदा काले काले प्रमथपति नृत्यचरितो जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयनपथगामी भवतु मे। जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयनपथगामी भवतु मे। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So first of all, I offer my humble, respectful obeisances unto lotus feet of my Gurupad Padma, Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtotara Satisi Srimad Bhaktivedanta Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj, and my Sannyas Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtotara Satismad Bhaktivedanta Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Simultaneously, offer my humble, respectful Dandavat Pranam, lotus feet of Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnupad, Ashtotara Satsmad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Parishtam Vishnupad, Ashtotara Satsmad Bhakti Rakas Siddhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Parishtam Vishnupad, Ashtotara Sad Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Parishtam Vishnupad, Ashtotara Sad Bhakti Viggan Srila Bharati Goswami Maharaj, and all senior devotees and all Vaishnavis, and presented all of my respectful guests. So, though I am very qualified, you are very kind to me and give me chance to speak something and about the glorification of my Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtotara Samad Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj. And so just I want to speak few words, the purification of my tongue. Vaishnavir Gurugan Korile Jivir Trang. And Chaitanya Bhagavad Vrindavan Das Thakur gives this statement. If we glorify about the life history of Vaishnavas and Gurus, then we will be protected by Maya. So just I want to speak few words. My Gurudev, and he was Uttam Mahabhagavat, and Nityala Prasana Vishnupad Ashtutara Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj. He was born in East Bengal, 1921, 23 December in the month of Pausa, according to Bengali calendar, month of Pous, and Krishna Navami Tithi, and in the Khulna district of Khulna Jila and Pirganj village. And, and from his early age, he was very learned and scholar, and very learned and scholar. That is called Ucha Medhavi. And his parents also gave his name Santosh, and because his name is Santosh means satisfied, and he is always is what satisfied and with anything. And so for this regard, his father gave his name Santosh, and his father name was Satish Chandra. And then he also, and when he was about 9 or 10 years old, then he also came in Navadvip Dham Parikrama in Mayapur with his mother. And his mother was very learned scholar. That's called Vidushi Mahila. She's very learned scholar woman, and she also completely surrendered to lotus feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Sri Prabhupada. And when he when my Gurudev Srila Santosh and came in Navadvip Dham Parikrama in Mayapur, when he saw the lotus feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, that he completely and surrendered his lotus feet. And after Navadvip Parikrama, his mother told him, we have to return back in our house. And that time Srila Gurudev Santosh and Kumar and Brahmachari, he told, no, no, this is my own house. Now I have come in my real house, and I will not go back and in East Bengal. Then his mother, so kind, and he also offered him and in the lotus feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Saraswati Prabhupada. And and he is thinking, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he is my mother and father, and he is my all in all. And then he completely also offered his soul, Atma, in the lotus feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada also offered his hand in the lotus hand of Nitya Lila Parishtang Vishnupad Ashtotarasana Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj. That time his name was Vinod Vihari Brahmachari. And so Gurudev many times also glorified about him. And though Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj and Santosh Kumar Brahmachari, he took Nam Diksha, Harinam initiation from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, but he completely, absolutely surrendered lotus feet of Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj Vinod Vihari Brahmachari. And he has so much love and affection with Narahari Prabhu. And that time Narahari Prabhu, he also called the mother of Gaudiya Vaishnava. Gaudiya Vaishnava ke mata the. And my Gurudev, he was very small, so always he also followed his footsteps and also servicing his Guru and Vaishnavas. My Gurudev, I also direct heard this katha from the lotus lips of my Gurudev, Vaman Goswami Maharaj. He told, always I also serve Guru and Vaishnava under guidance of Narahari Prabhu. And even I also cutting the sabji and vegetables under guidance him. My Gurudev, he also cut the sabji very nicely and fine. And so for this regard, Narahari Prabhu, and who is the mother of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, he also and gave him shelter and in his lotus feet and taught him how to and more advance and to serve Guru and Vaishnavas. And then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he departed from this material world. And because after 1 year, and then Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada, he departed from this material world. And then many things also happened in Gaudiya Math. And but my Gurudev, always he was staying with Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj and Vinod Bihari Brahmachari. My Gurudev, he told, and I always served under guidance of Narahari Prabhu and also Vinod Bihari Brahmachari. My Gurudev, he told, once if Vinod Bihari Brahmachari also admitted in the school of Bhakti Vinod institution. And then I also every day used to go and to learn all the Shastra from Vaishnava Shastra from Bhakti Vinod institution. One day was heavy rain and I did not go. Then I was cutting the sabji. In the meantime, Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Prabhupada, he came. And that time Prabhupada, he told, you are not going to school. That time Narahari Prabhu told, that today is rainy season, so much rain coming. For this regard, Vinod Bihari, for this regard, Santosh, he is not going to school. And he also washed his clothes. And then he was wearing one gamcha, and he was cutting the sabji. Then Prabhupada, he told, no, you have to go to school. And that time my Gurudev, he was thinking what to do now. That time Gurudev told, I have only one cloth and one dhuti. And so for this regard, I'm thinking what will do now. But Prabhupada also told to me, you have to go to school. So I am thinking I cannot deny the instruction of Prabhupada. For this regard, I became very upset. And then I'm thinking what will do now. Then I came in my room and and just I saw all my weft cloth and I also chanted Nishinga mantra. And Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada also gave uh, him Nishinga mantra. Om Gurubirang Mahavishnu. This mantra, my Gurudev, he received from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. And then my Gurudev, he told, just I chanted this Nishinga mantra, then I came out from my room, then I thinking what will do, because all my clothes are completely wet, and what will do now. Then again I entered in my room, then I saw all my clothes completely dry. Just someone pressed my cloth and completely dry. Then I wear that the cloth. Then I told to Narahari Prabhu, yeah, now I am going to school. Then when I then again Prabhupada, he came down from the upstairs. He asked to Narahari Prabhu, where is Santosh? Then Narahari Prabhu, he told, well, you told you have to go to school. So for this regard, he went to school. Then Prabhupada, he also asked Narahari Prabhu, just you told me, and Santosh Brahmachari, he also and washed his clothes. So how did he and go to the school? And then after 4 p.m., when Srila Gurudev returned back from the school, that time Prabhupada also asked his own chamber, room, and asked, yeah, how did you put the dry clothes? What happened? That time my Gurudev, he told Prabhupada, and I was thinking, how possible I will also disobey your instruction. For this regard, I chanted Narsingh mantra and Om Gurubirang Mahavishnu, this mantra, and thinking, hey, Nishinadev, please save me. And I have to follow the instruction Prabhupada. Then I chanted again. I entered in my room. Then I saw all my clothes completely dyed. When I heard this katha, then Prabhupada's heart melted and tears rolling down. And Prabhupada is saying, oh Lord Nrsimhadev, he's called Bhakta Vatsal, Bhakta Vatsal Nrsimhadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. So my Gurudev himself told how my Gurudev, he was exalted Vaishnava. And because he was born in also Vaishnava family, a Bhakti Siddhant, a Bhakti Sila Gurudev, Vaman Goswami Maharaj, his uncle that is called Bhakti Kusal Narsingh Maharaj. And then after Vaishnav, what is called, then Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada departed this material world. Something happened in Gaudiya Math, and so many also entered in the jail. That there are things, many things also happened. My Gurudev also one pointed with the lotus feet of Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj Vinod Vihari Brahmachari, and that time he also only received Harinam from Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada, but he did not get the initiation and Diksha mantra. But that time, Vinod Vihari Brahmachari, though he was in the jail, and he also gave Diksha mantra to him. And then Jajavar Maharaj, the disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada, he also performed his fire sacrifice ceremony. And so for this regard, many people also confused. Maybe Baman Goswami Maharaj, he is the disciple of Jajavar Goswami Maharaj. But my Gurudev, he told, no, I direct also received Diksha mantra Diksha from Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj. That means Vinod Vihari Brahmachari. Because that time rules was very strict. And if you not initiated Diksha mantra, no one can eat on your hand. And for this regard, Vinod Vihari Brahmachari, though he was in the jail, then he also gave Diksha mantra to him. And he also cooked very delicious prasadam for the brahmachari and sannyasis, those who were inside the jail. And also my Gurudev, he also consult with the lawyer and carrying on all the and special and papers and discuss with these things. And then Param Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj gave his spiritual name Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari. Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari. Then my Gurudev, how he is the Seva Vritti and services to Guru and Vaishnava. Even his 103-degree high fever, and that time Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj told, oh, now many Jatris and pilgrims, they has come in temple, and but who will cook? And that time Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari, and he also very quickly he came in the kitchen room, and he cooked for all the Vaisnavas. And then Srila Vinod Vihari Brahmachari and asked, oh, how possible it? That time also, and then he told, okay, Gurudev, I have to follow your order. And so in this way, how our my Gurudev, Baman Goswami Maharaj, he completely surrendered to lotus feet of Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj and followed his instruction. Then after when all Vaishnava took prasad and satisfied, then my Gurudev again, he also lay down on his bed, and his fever has come. Then doctor came and gave some medicine. Then his fever also went away. In this way, Vaishnavi Lila, and my Gurudev also explained in this way. And my Gurudev always he also observed to write and write some things in Gaudiya Patrika, and Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj, he he gave the dictation. My Gurudev, he was writing everything. My Gurudev handwriting was very nice and beautiful, as like Chaitanya Charitamrita Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami about Rupa Goswami Pad. Ye Ruper Lekhon Jano Muktar Pati. The right hand Muktar Pati. The Rupa Goswami Pad handwriting as like one pearls. In the same way, my Gurudev handwriting was very nice and beautiful and attractive. And so Gurudev Sriman Goswami, most of the time he glorified the Vaman Goswami's right hand, Vaman Goswami handwriting, as like Rupa Goswami. And he was learned in scholar also. For this regard, all Vaisnavas called him Gauriya Vaishnav Dictionary. And he was very learned and scholar. If he would listen any slokas, or otherwise he see the any slokas, and he can remember, and his smaran sakti and very strong. And even when he was in the school, and sometimes he did not open his book, and his teacher also chastised to him, why did not open your book? I am giving the instruction, but you are not open your book. That time in the school, that boy hit one another boy nearby. His another boy told that he has so much, he has so much memory. That time, that the teacher becomes surprised, how possible. And that time, that teacher also told, okay, you can speak something about this book. And that my Gurudev Vaman Goswami Maharaj, and that time his name was Santosh Kumar. And without and taking darshan, without open the book, he also and spoke all the verses of the book. Then that the teacher became very surprised. In this, so my Gurudev also told, I learned all the slokas. And even Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, sometimes he also told, if you learn one slok, I will give one chocolate. But my Gurudev, every day he learned 10 to 12 and, slokas. So Prabhupada also gave him and 10 to 12 and chocolates. Other brahmachari, they also received from Prabhupada maybe 1 or 2 chocolates, because they just and learned 1 or 2 slokas. By my Gurudev, he learned many slokas in this way. So and my Gurudev, once I also asked my Gurudev, how many slokas do you know? That my Gurudev also told, 7 days, 7 nights. If I recite the slokas, it will never finish. So do you know how my Gurudev, you are learned and scholar. And every day he chanted and 64 rounds holy names. We also asked Gurudev, how many rounds you are chanting holy names? He told, every day I chanted 64 rounds holy names. And and one when he was at what is called and service in press, that time he was also does service in press, that is called Brihat Mridanga Seva. And then his finger and accidentally cut in the press, and that is so much blood coming, and feeling so much pain. When heard these things, then Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, he cried, and as like parents, and immediately also admitted him one nursing home, and also and bandage everything. So in this way, Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, how much has Vatsalya Bhav, parental love and affection with him. And Srila Vaman Goswami, Srila Gurudev, and in this way, and Srila Gurudev, he also preached all over the India, especially mostly he preached in Bengal and also Assam. And sometimes he used to, sometimes also he used to go preaching and with Gurudev Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, especially in Assam, because Assam people, they are completely ignorance, because they are thinking Hankar Dev, and he is a Bhagavan. And for this regard, once Srila Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, he preached in there, and he also briefly and loudly, he also told against the Dev. They are completely Sahaja. They eating fish, meat, and also chanting holy names. But that time Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, for this regard, he also explained those who are eating meat and fish, their mouth is as like the drain of and and drain of severe sewage. And understand this thing well. That time, all the followers of Hangadev, they become very angry and they throw the stone and say, use many harsh words and loudly they also speaking and running here and there. That time, Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj very loudly and as like a lion roaring and stop. What are you saying? This is according to the Shastra. And Hangadev, he is not Bhagavan. And what are Shastra saying? And you have to stop the meeting, eat and meeting, eat, meat eating and other things also. And follow the four principles. And that time he also indicates to my Gurudev and Sajan Sajan Sevak Brahmachari. And then my Gurudev very loudly he also recited all the shastras, quoted all the slokas, Ved, Puran, Upanishad, and who is called Bhagavan. And even Srimad Bhagavatam also, and he also quoted the verses and Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna Parnam Tisa Krishna Sangha Pangastra Parsadam Jagga Sankirtan Prari Jajanti hi Su Medhasa. And he quoted this verse Srimad Bhagavatam and also different slokas. And he established in this Kali Yuga only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sachidananda Gaurhari, he is the supreme personality of Godhead and he is the direct manifestation of Krishna's. So in this way, my Gurudev, Vaman Goswami Maharaj, he gave all the evidence from the Shastra. Then all the followers of Hankar Dev, they come and quiet, and most of they also learned and scholars persons, they also surrender lotus feet of Srila Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, and they received Nam mantra from him. My Gurudev, he told, and my Gurudev, he is perfect. He had the ideal Vaishnava behavior, and how he was humble and he, my Guru, Srila Gurudev Nand Goswami Maharaj told, and when you took sannyas, that time he was always very humble. He did not speak in first, and he always spoke to Srila Nand Goswami Maharaj. You speak, then I will speak something. At the rest of the time, maybe I will speak and I will take your remnants. And those senior most persons, because in the disciple of Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev is the senior most person, and because after so many years, Srila Gurudev Vaman Goswami Maharaj, Tivikrishna Goswami Maharaj joined in Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. Actually, Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti formed and Abhay Charan De, now his name, now that is called Nityalla Prasna Vishnu Pada Satya Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj. And so Narsingh Maharaj and Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj and Srila Bhakti Pradhan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, and formed in this way. And so for this regard, Gurudev, he told, though we are very junior, but Vaman Goswami are very humble, and he always also pushed to us, no, you speak, and then I will take your remnants. And he always gives the respect to Vaman Goswami, Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj and Trivikram Goswami Maharaj. And Gurudev told, I have so much love and affection with Vaman Goswami Maharaj, because Vaman Goswami Maharaj, actually, he also brought me Navadvip station to ashramas. Gurudev told, when I left my house, then I arrived in Navadvip Dham station, railway station, and that time it completely a dark night, and no one also in there. Then Baman Goswami Maharaj, he came, and with his one lantern, and lamp, and there's so many. So that time he also, when he saw to me, and he also, you are Tiwari. That time I become a bit surprised. How did you know? Yeah, I have come here. That time Baman Goswami Maharaj, he told, oh, Gurudev told me, you are coming, for this regard I have come. So Gurudev told, when I first came in my temple, and when I saw my Gurudev, then I also completely surrendered lotus feet of my Gurudev, Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj. That time I told my Gurudev, Gurudev, I am giving all the love and affection of my wife and children, everything unto your lotus feet. That time Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj heart melted and embraced him. And so, and Srila in Srila Bhaman Goswami Maharaj, he is always humble. Srila Gurudev, he told, though he, according to the rules of Gurudeva Vedanta Samiti, he is the president and acharya, but when he used to give diksha or saffron cloth to any brahmachari, and he always also had asked the brahmachari first to take permission from Narayan Maharaj, then I will give sannyas or red cloth or diksha. And I remember also myself when I first when I approached to taking initiation diksha mantra, because I took only Harinam from Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and so when in the Dol Purnim, and when I also approached to Gurudev, Bhaman Goswami Maharaj received diksha mantra. That time he also asked me, first you take permission from Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and also when I approached him to receive their saffron cloth, red cloth, that time he also told me, you have to take permission from Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And always he used this word, Narayan Goswami Maharaj, he is my guardian. You understand? He is my master. And when he will give when he will give order, then I will follow his instruction. So how he was very always love and affection, and also completely how he has so much relationship, love and affection relationship with Gurudev, Trivikram Goswami Maharaj and Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Um, and he always he also absorbed Nam Sankirtan, and he also wrote many granthas also, and especially according to the instruction of his Gurudev, he also reprinted Bhaktivinoda Thakur and most of the uh, books as like Jaiva Dharma, Chaitanya Shikshamrit, Shikshastaka, and all the granthas also he manifested, eh? And always he also explained, and everybody have to one pointed with Srimati Radhika. So for this regard, he also recited Radhikar and also Radhikar Vishabhanu Suta Charone Sevone Hoiva je Pallo Dasi. Radhikar Pakka Shari Jejona Sejona Bhaje Amita Radhikar Pakka Pati Sada Kobu Nahi Heri Take. In this way, he always one pointed with Srimati Radhika. And just I remember just 1 second I can tell, when we used to come in front of him, he recited one slokas from Gita Govinda. And Jadi Hari Smarane Jadi Hari Smarane Sarasangamano Jadi Bilas Kolasa Kutuhalam Madhura Komolo Kanta Padavali Sunutada Joy Deva Sarasatim. He recited this verse from Gita Govinda. If you also always absorb and with beautiful pastimes of different Radha and Krishna, you must and enter in the slokas, and how Jayadev Goswami Pad he wrote this verse, Smarakala Khandanam Mama Sirasi Mandanam Dehitava Pada Pallava Mudaram. My Gurudev, originally he was Raga Manjari, and eternal associate of Srimati, Radhika, Sri Gurudev Nana Goswami is the Raman Manjari, and my Gurudev also Raga Manjari. I again and again I pay my obeisances, lotus feet of my Gurudev, Vaman Goswami Maharaj, Sri Nana Goswami Maharaj, Sri Trivikram Goswami Maharaj. They are the three pillars of Gaudiya Vaishnava, that is the three Devata, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. In this way, I pay my obeisance. Panchaguru Kripa Sindhu Yocha, Patitanang Pavane Bho, Vaishnave Bho Nama. Jai Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Srila Nana Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Srila Bhaktivedanta, Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, all Vaishnavas ki Jai, Jai Jai Sri Radhe Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you so much. Dandavat Pranams Maharaj. Thank you so much for sharing so much.
Speak Hari Katha. I
No,
want to
you're
speak more and more.
hopefully we will bring you back to speak about
Okay.
Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. We've heard so much about Srila Vama Maharaj. I feel so close to him, and I think all the devotees here are feeling very fortunate because we hear that any disciple, any real disciple has the qualities of Sri Guru, and we see that in you also, that you have these qualities of Srila Vama Maharaj and Srila Gurudev within you. So we're very fortunate. So thank you so much, Maharaj, for spending some time with us.
Give me opportunity to speak the glorification of my Gurudev. And Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, all Vaishnavas, especially Jasodanandan Prabhu and Radhika and all others. Jai Srila Gurudev ki Jai. Okay. Hari Bol.
So we're gonna move over to our next speaker, who has spent many years in service to Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. He's known as one of the senior devotees of Srila Swami Maharaj. It's none other than our Raghunatha Prabhu from the UK. Well, he's American, but he's from the UK now.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Amaganachmanandasya, Gananjana Shalakaya. Chakshula Militam Jana Tasman Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam, Stapitam Jana Bhutale, Swayam Rupagadama Amdadati Sapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vidyadhara Swasti Gauravinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I'm sure I'm a bit after the fact, but it's taken me a while to understand that our Guru Varg, our Parampara, they're all Manjaris. Therefore, Guru Tattva, in my understanding, means Radhika. Srila Gurudeva Maharaj points out in his books to us that Krishna says, Radha is my Guru. So, if she's his Guru, to me that means she's everybody's Guru. What's the proof? She's reaching out to us. The acharyas in our line are her handpicked manjaris, sent to this world to enter the material nature, to do what? To offer all conditioned souls in the human form of life an opportunity to enter into her Astakaliya Leela with Krishna. For me, this is the sum and substance of the whole Vaishnava philosophy. I only know a few identities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is, I believe, Nayana Manjari. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Kamala Manjari. The six Goswamis are actually the six Manjaris. Raghunath Das Goswami, Rati Manjari. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Rasa Manjari. Gopalabhat Goswami, Guna Manjari. Who is it? Sanatana Goswami, Lavanga Manjari. Jiva Goswami, Vilas Manjari. And of course, Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari. So we are in this disciplic succession of Manjaris who have been sent to take birth as acharyas to teach us how to enter into Srimati Radhika's intimate circle. I remember the first time I met His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, my Diksha Guru, and Srila Narayan Maharaj, my Shiksha Guru. I remember feeling curiously, spontaneously attracted to both of them, but I couldn't really understand why. Perhaps many lifetimes or some lifetimes of Sukriti or Adhikar enabled me to perceive something of them, something, some microscopic, something very microscopic about them that had a very magnetic pull to it. Now I understand what that magnetic pull is. It's the pull of Rajadam. It's extraordinary. It's incredible. When I was first involved in the Krishna consciousness experience, people used to say to me, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada is so heavy. Guru means heavy." Same with Narayan Maharaj. Devotees used to say, this goes back to the late 70s when I first met him. So heavy, heavy, heavy. Then it took me a while to realize, what is that heaviness? That heaviness is prema. It is prema. That's what the heaviness is. Therefore, people say, very commonly, sometimes people say, love conquers all. They have no idea. They have no idea whatsoever what they're saying. The love that conquers all is the love of the residents of Braj, specifically the Manjaris, for rendering service to the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And for me personally, this is what the Krishna consciousness movement now means to me. It means different things to different people as they enter onto the path, Perhaps in the beginning, people think the devotees are very friendly and they like the prasadam and they like the kirtan, so forth and so on, so forth and so on. These things are all meant to attract our attention. They are tools, actually. Of course, in the spiritual world, there is singing, there is dancing, there is, nice prasad. So many things are there. But we are experiencing something that is a microcosm, not just a microcosm, but more like a miniature version of what's going on there when we participate in the Krishna consciousness movement. I remember thinking to myself when I met Gurudev, when I met Srila Narayan Maharaj, oh, he's so powerful, he's so heavy. Now I know what it was or what it is. It's his love. The Manjaris come to this world on the request of Srimati Radhika, and what do? They take on the Acharya Vesh, the dress of an Acharya, and they put out that potency for all those with sufficient Sukriti and sufficient Adhikar to perceive it, inquire about it, approach it. So this is her movement. Srila Gurudev's her Manjari, Srila Prabhupada, her Manjari, all Manjaris. In fact, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada used to say in the early days, we are following in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis. To me, that means what? Following in the footsteps of the 6 Manjaris. And then he made it even more specific. He used to say, follow in the footprints, more than footsteps. That's more precise and more exact. If you follow in someone's footprints, you go where they go and you become what they are by exhibiting that kind of behavior, by worshiping that kind of behavior. So what else? He also used to say, Srila Prabhupada used to say, I think this is in the introduction to his Krishna book. He says, one must. A lot of people have missed this. He says, one must read the books of the 6 Goswamis. Again, who are the 6 Goswamis? The 6 Manjaris. Who is more qualified? Who could possibly be more qualified to write about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna than personalities who are directly a part of it? Who are the personification of that Leela. So when Srila Prabhupada says one must read the books of the 6 Goswamis, it's kind of like, he's using, I take must to be taken on different levels. Must means you must do this at a certain level of devotion if you want to go further, but also there's a certain ras there that can be relished by someone who's qualified. It's like if somebody reads an interesting book in the material world, they tell their friends, oh, you must read this book, meaning how wonderful it is. So Srila Prabhupada used to say, one must read the books of the six Goswamis. It's a requirement at a certain level of devotion. And also, you know, for someone who's on that level, it's something to really be relished. I don't have any qualification to understand these things. I've not read the books of the six Goswamis. I'm still on the platform of, you know, do good and avoid evil. But right now, that's the best I can do. But I just wanted to, you know, offer dandavats and thanks to all the devotees, including my Diksha Guru, Srila Prabhupada, and my initiating spiritual master, my, what do you call it, Shiksha Guru, Srila Narayan Maharaj, for giving me whatever mercy they did to be able to get as far as I have. Because, you know, I'm just I don't want to talk about myself, but I'm just a Kali Yuga person, you know, with a Kali Yuga mentality. But somehow or other, the Acharyas come, the Manjaris come, and by their touchstone-like association, bell metal is transformed into gold. You know, every one of us is being given an opportunity right now to rise to the highest position. What does it mean to rise to the highest position? Not like some mundane achievement to be attained. Rise to the highest position means the pinnacle, what did Gurudev call it? The pinnacle of devotion, the topmost level of unconditional, unselfish love. And at the present moment in time, it's beyond my comprehension, because I'm still on the platform of, you know, you do something for me, I do something for you, you know, you owe me something, I owe you something. I want to get beyond that. I want to get to the point of unconditional relationship. And that point of unconditional relationship exists within the body of the pure devotee, within the body of the Acharya. And again, who are the Acharyas? They're all Manjaris. This movement, for example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Radharani. Why? Because Krishna wants to taste himself, and he can't do that by himself. So he wants to taste the mood. He wants to taste what his devotee is tasting. And he's not going to pick any devotee. He's only going to pick the best. So who does he choose? Radha Rani, the queen of devotion. He comes in her mood, and he shows us by his practical behavior what she is experiencing in her relationship with Krishna. And this is what Srila Gurudeva has come to give us. This is what Srila Prabhupada has come to give us. This is what all the Acharyas in our line, all Manjaris, have come to give us. So I just want to thank everybody for listening. That's as far as my, you know, who was it said it? Chanika Pandit? I don't know. As high as the birds can fly, that's as far as my realization can go. So thank you very much for listening, and Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Raghunath Prabhu, for sharing this. Actually, you know, what you're experiencing and what you spoke about in terms of the meaning of heaviness, and that is Srimati, like that prem, it's that prem, and this movement is based around this prem, and the when you met with Srila Prabhupada and when you met with Srila Gurudev, this magnet like feeling that everyone had when they met them, the way that you've explained it is so beautiful. And actually I never ever thought of it in that way. And I guess as time goes on and as bhakti increases, as I'm seeing so many senior devotees, these realizations occur. And actually they're so wonderful and so beautiful, and I hope that I actually get to understand the depths of what you're actually seeing and realizing. So thank you so much for spending some time with us to explain this, because it was phenomenal.
Haribol. Our next speaker has definitely exhibited Trinada P, because he must be as tolerant as a tree, because he has actually lived with me for about 3 years. So you have to be tolerant to do that. He, some of his beautiful qualities are that he is somebody who regularly goes out on Sankirtan, you know, the core instruction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to do Sankirtan in the streets. He's always doing that. He's distributing books consistently. And one of the things I really love observing is his desire, his deep desire for harmony throughout our Sangha. A very deep desire is in his heart in that respect. And also his very intense honesty and introspection in personal dealings. It's very beautiful to watch that and be part of that. So I'm excited to hear the offering of our beloved God brother, Sriman Balabhadra Prabhu. Haribol Prabhu, welcome.
And the rest to everybody, Hare Krishna. Mancha Kapa Drupascha Kripa Sindhuve Epacha Patitanam Bhavnabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Jnana Timirandasya Janandana Sarakaya Takso Mitam Nina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Vishnuvidaya Radhika Priyatmane Sriman Bhaktivedanta Narayani Tinamane. Nama Vishnuvidaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamane. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First, I'm begging for the causeless mercy of our beloved Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. I'm similarly asking for the causeless mercy of our divine beloved Master Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, without whose mercy none of us would be here. I'm begging for the mercy of all the Prabhupada disciples also, without whose profuse sankirtan, whose I'm not even any close to matching, save the planet. So I'm going to read from Chaitanya Bhagavat first, and then I'm going to quote some teachings from Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada about book distribution. So this is from Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, chapter 23. And this is how the Supreme Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his disciples reacted when the government tried to impose restrictions on the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Very much like the situation we're in right now. Lord Vishwambara stood before the Kazi's palace doors, his rising anger visible. With a voice like thunder, he said, "Where is that mischief monger Kazi? Right this minute, bring him to me and cut off his head. I will obliterate the entire Yavana race from the face of the earth, as I have done previously. Break open and smash everything. Break it, break it." These were the orders of the Supreme Lord. Who could disobey? The congregation was already exuberant and inebriated by the association of Lord Chaitanya and the holy name. So such a command from the Lord was immediately put into action with great enthusiasm. The congregation ransacked the entire property. They went through the house and indiscriminately broke anything that came in their way. The garden lay limp and ravished as if after a hurricane. Banana trees lay uprooted, broken branches hung from the mango trees. The flower garden was stamped to the ground. Lakhs and lakhs of people overrun the palace rooms and grounds. Throughout the entire operation, the congregation was chanting, "Hari, Hari." The holy name was their constant companion. They punctuated every move with Lord Hari's name. Lord Vishwambara then said, "Now burn down everything. Put fire to the house. Let the Kazi and all his men burn to death. I want to see what this king will do with me. I also want to see who has the audacity to check me. The god of time and death are all my devoted servitors. They are created by my glance over mature nature. To propagate the congregational chanting of the holy name is the main purpose of my event. If anyone so much as tries to cause an obstruction, then I will annihilate them." However, even if the lowest of sinners participates in the chanting of the Lord's name, then he should be remembered by me and saved. On the other hand, even if persons are performing austerity, renunciation, Vedic studies, and yoga, but do not join the Sankirtan movement, then they will certainly perish. So now, do not fear. Put fire to the house. I will bring about the total devastation of the entire race of Yavanas. When they saw the Lord's wrath, the devotees fell on their knees and raising their arms prayed to him. "One of your principal expansions is Lord Sankarshan. His anger is never manifest untimely. When the time is ready for the destruction of the material world, then Rudra appears as the expansion and incarnation of Lord Sankarshan. After Rudra completes the work of annihilation, he then returns into your transcendental body. The work of annihilation is carried out by the expansion of your expansion. So if you are angry, who can check your wrath? The Vedas glorify you as without anger and eternally blissful. Our hearts cannot see you minimize the Vedic injunction. Even Lord Brahma never attracts your ire. Creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world are simply your transcendental pastimes. Today, you have sufficiently chastised the Kazi, and if next time he does anything against you, then you can destroy him. All glory to Lord Vishwambara, the Supreme Lord of all Lords. All glory to Lord Gaurasana, the Lord of the universe and the Lord of Lakshmi Devi, who rests upon an Antashesh. Lord Chaitanya smiled after listening to their choice prayers, and then saying, Hari, 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 he began to dance and chant with everyone. The Kazi had been justly dealt with by the Lord and was pacified, knowing that the public congregational chanting would continue. He now led the procession back towards the tower. With the previous jubilance and exuberance, the chanting and dancing began again. Joy once more filled the atmosphere. The devotees were now free from any fear or inhibition. They could chant their beloved Lord Krishna's name anytime, any place. Book distribution. This is from the Soul of Book Distribution that was published by Srimati Shamarani Didi. And this is from Rupa Goswami's Back to Srimati Sindhu Bindu, verse 4, Shri Bindu Vikashini Priti. Vaishnava Shastra Seva is described as one of the 64 limbs of Bhakti. It is number 54. One should faithfully and regularly study such scriptures, hear from them from the mouths of pure devotees, and read from them and recite them with a worshipful attitude. One should know the object to be obtained by such scriptures, that is Bhagavad Bhakti, and having full faith in that, one should mold one's life in accordance with its principles. The restoration of, careful keeping of, publication and propagation of Vaishnava Shastras are all included within Shastra Seva. And here are some quotes by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. The books that were produced by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, as well as the books I am now producing, should be printed in very large numbers, and now it is taking place. We are presently spending about $200,000 to print books, and now there is a question of distributing them. I do not want the books to remain in cold storage. I want you all to help me in the distribution of books, and so you may also keep some profit for your going here and there. Los Angeles, California, May the 11th, 2003. Also, try to give out the books which are published by us. In Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj times, so many young girls and boys used to do this. This is why very quickly Krishna consciousness spread all over the world. And I want this to happen again. Nowadays, the leaders are not doing Nagasankirtan, Harinam. I want all my disciples to do it. Even if there are 2, 3, or 4 persons, there is no harm in that. You can go out with mridanga and kartals. And if there is no mridanga, no harm, you can go out with kartals and just chant Hari Bol, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Regarding my books, each devotee should take at least 10 sets and distribute them. I have told this so many times. Do this to serve and please Gurudeva and Krishna, and go on doing it. Thank you. Moai Hawaii, 25th, 2000. By the order and mercy of his Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj traveled everywhere in this world. He went to Western and Eastern countries, and he preached the mission of our Guru Parampara in the line of Rupa Goswami, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. It is very wonderful how in a couple of years he preached all over the world, in forests, on islands, and in the midst of oceans, and on the top of hills, and everywhere else. How was it possible? It is possible because he translated so many authorized books like Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and Bhagavad Gita as it is. And he ordered his disciples to distribute them in public places like churches, airports, supermarkets, and railway stations. At that time, beautiful teenage girls preached everywhere with no shyness, dancing here and there. They distributed books. They went everywhere chanting Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, and Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. By this kirtan and by writing and distributing books, almost the entire world came to know about him. And this mission was preached everywhere in a couple of years. He is my Siksha Guru. I also want this. I want to do as he did. In addition, my Diksha Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Kishore Goswami Maharaj, told me to translate books in their original language, and I am doing so. Up to now, about 50 books have been published, and they are both supplementary and complementary to the books of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. In my supplement to his Bhagavad Gita as it is, I have given additional commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Now I want to publish Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, a supplement to what he gave in brief in the form of Nectar of Devotion. And there I will give the commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami Pad. Besides this, Shri Ujjwala Nilamani is coming to you very soon. Shri Bhajarahasa, Shri Brahma Samhita, Shri Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and so many other books all standing in a row calling out, you should publish me first. You should publish me first. My devotees are helping me in this endeavor. Srila Swami Maharaj just sent me very learned scholars, even scholars in Sanskrit, Bengali, and Hindi, and they're all helping me. He has also sent me many experts in computers. I desire to follow him, and I pray that he may inspire me so that I will accomplish all these tasks. I want that in cyclic order, thousands and thousands of books should come from the press, and they should at once be distributed and again printed. And here are some words from Srila Prabhupada. Actually, it is a fact that ultimately everyone should preach and distribute books if they want to please me in the best way. Book distribution must be given stress, always. He has spoken the right thing. This is a letter. If you do this sincerely, it is a fact that Krishna will supply everything else required. I blindly follow my Guru Maharaj. I don't know what is the result. So I am stressing on this point of book distribution. He told me this personally. Book distribution is the Bhagavat Maharaj and temple worship is the Pantarik Vivadi. Both are important for cultivating Vaishnavism, but comparatively speaking, Bhagavat Maharaj is more important than Pantarika Vidi. As far as possible, both should go on in parallel lines, but still Bhagavat Maharaj is more important than the other. So you're all intelligent boys, so you should judge the desire for my Guru Maharaj and help me in that way. A letter to Shri Govinda, Bombay, 6th of December 1974. I very much like to receive the report of my book sales. I think it also gives encouragement to the devotees who distribute books. Here in Mayapur, my Guru Maharaj was printing one paper. I was selling for only a few paisa. Sometimes, whenever one brahmachari would go to Navadvip and sell even a few copies, I would see my Guru Maharaj become very much pleased. Even if the brahmachari was not an important member, my Guru Maharaj would become very, very pleased with him. He personally instructed me that books are more important than big temples. At Radhika, he told me that since constructing the big marble temple at Bhagavad, there have been so many difficulties. Our men are envious of who will live in which room. I think it would be better to take off all the marbles and sell them to print books. He told me this personally. So I am always emphasizing book distribution. It is the better kirtan. It is better than chanting. Of course, chanting should not stop, but book distribution is the best kirtan. Mayapur, 24th of October, 1974. There's 3 more. This, our book distribution, is the most important task in our society. Therefore, I am giving so much stress and I am working so hard on this because this is my life and soul, according to the order of my Guru Maharaj, and it is by his grace that is to some extent successful. And I took it seriously. I take it seriously still now. This is my life and soul. I never tried in India to construct big temples, or even in your country I didn't. I never tried, but I was selling personally books. That is the history. Sometimes they are criticizing. What kind of sannyasi? He is doing book business. He laughs. December the 31st, 1976, Bombay. Go on spreading the Sankirtan movement more and more. I am only one person, but because all of you have kindly cooperated with me, this movement has now become a success all over the world. Be assured that there is no more direct way to preach than to distribute Krishna conscious books. Whoever gets a book is benefited. If he reads the book, he is benefited more. Or if he gives the book to somebody else for reading, both he and the other person is benefited. Even if one does not read the book, but simply holds it and sees it, he is benefited. If he simply gives a small donation towards the work of Krishna consciousness, he is benefited. And anyone who distributes these transcendental literatures, he is also benefited. 2 more. One should engage in practical service to the Lord. in our Krishna conscious movement, all our activities are concentrated upon distributing Krishna literature. This is very important. One may approach any person and induce him to read Krishna literature so that in the future he also may become a devotee. Such activities are recommended in this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:237. Such activities will always remind the devotees of the Lord's lotus feet. By fully concentrating on and distributing books for Krishna, one is fully absorbed in Krishna. This is samadhi. And this is the final one. How can nature be controlled? Mam eva ye prapadanti mayam etam taranti te. Bhagavad Gita 7:14. This is the law of nature. If you become disobedient to God, then Prakriti, or nature, will give you trouble in so many ways. And as soon as you become submissive and surrender to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there will be no more natural disturbances. I have heard in 1900 and 1898, I was born in 1896, so I have heard, I have seen also, I remember in Calcutta, there was a very virulent type of plague epidemic in 1898. So Calcutta became devastated. All people practically left Calcutta. Daily, hundreds and hundreds of people were dying, hundreds and hundreds. I was a 1-year-old or 1.5-year-old. I have seen what was happening. There was a plague epidemic that I did not know, but later on I heard from my parents. So one Babaji, he organized Sankirtan, Hare Krishna Sankirtan, where there was no other way. He organized Sankirtan all over Calcutta. And in the Sankirtan, all people, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Parsi, everyone joined. And they were coming. They were going to road, street to street, entering every house. So that Mahatma Gandhi, Road 151, you have seen. The Sankirtan party received there very nicely. There was light, and I was very small. I was also dancing, 1.5-year-old Prabhupada dancing. I can remember, just like our small children sometimes dances, I remember. I could only see up to the knees of the persons who were joined. So the plague subsided. This is a fact. Everyone who knows history of Calcutta, the plague was subsided by Sankirtan movement. Lecture on the Srimad Bhagavatam, 110.5, Mayapur, June 20th, 1973. Vanchakapa Drupascha, Kripa Sindhu Evacha, Patitanam Bhavanibhyo, Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Gurudev, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Bala, that was absolutely beautiful. I feel the fire of devotion from across London. That was really a tremendous clarion call for us to follow. Thank you so much. That really stirred me. There's a beautiful Leela of Gurudev's whereby I think it was quite late on in his travels, and it was maybe 2 a.m. Madhav Maharaj woke up and realized something wasn't quite right, and he saw Gurudev translating his books at about 2 a.m, at about 1, when he should have been sleeping, basically. Madhav Maharaj took away his torch because he obviously was trying to regulate Gurudev's health. And but this was the devotion of Srila Gurudev. If he couldn't serve, there was no point in him even being on the planet. And if he couldn't write, he couldn't do his mission. There's a beautiful quote actually that our next speaker sent me the other day from Srila Gurudev. This is from Mathura in 1994. Srila Gurudev said, "A day will come when I will not be in this world, and that many will think that all these books are so valuable." And that's really happening now. Personally, every day, as I relish Gurudev's books, they're getting more and more valuable in my heart. And I know that it's very amazing. While Gurudev was on the planet, obviously we all know that there were some issues with the ISKCON as an institution, but certainly after he disappeared, each year, more and more people are receiving his books and are absorbing themselves in his books, both within Sanghas and new devotees. And Gurudev's incredible, monumental Rasa Tattva is reaching more and more people, going into our ears and imbuing our hearts with something very, very special, totally priceless. So Balabhadra Prabhu, thank you so much. That was a very rousing, that really roused me. Thank you. Our next speaker has joined us from Connecticut on the eastern coast of the United States of America. There you go, there he is. He also exhibits Trinadapi because he also lived with me, but for less time. And I am so happy to see him and Banu Didi in the same frame. Haribol Banu, beautiful to see you from Connecticut. Raghava Pandit is Sriman Raghava Pandit Prabhu is a disciple of Gurudeva Maharaj, as well as a disciple of Srila Gurudev Narayan Maharaj. And I'm so happy that he's a close friend. He's a very creative person, very open-minded, has a very universal spirit when it comes to spreading Krishna consciousness. One of the most non-sectarian people I know. He's always looking for the bigger picture, the bigger vision. He's also very talented at deploying his skills on through web design and web strategy and web courses. So I'm very happy that you're coming to share your offering with us, Raghava. So Hare Krishna, please, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Wow, after that introduction, I feel like I wanted to just disappear under the table. But thank you so much for your kindness and for all the Vaisnavas here for giving the opportunity.
You can go under the table as long as you come back, okay?
Vancha kalpatrobhisya kripa sindhuvyevasya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Uma jnanati marandasya jnanandjana salakya chaksuran militam yena tasmai Sri Gurave namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripata maham bande Sri Guru Dinatari. I want to give my sastanga heartfelt dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of my Gurudev Shishila Nitilita Pavista 108 Shishila Gaur-Govinda Goswami Maharaj, and my equal sastanga dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of my Shiksha Guru Shishila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and also unlimited Pushpanjali Sastanga Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of Shishila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Shishila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, and Shishila Bhaktivedanta Vana Goswami Maharaj, and all Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas in the line of Sri Rupa Nuga, Sri Rupa Goswami, worshippers and friends and admirers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the past, at present, and those who will become devotees in the future. I'm also giving my Dandavat pranams to them. So this is really wonderful Zoom Kirtan that we are doing today and over these weeks, which I really appreciate and try to make use of when we are sitting here with time differences but it's always wonderful, always fills my heart with admiration and appreciation. Even although we may have busy lives, yesterday we were driving our car while listening to the wonderful speech of Bhagavad Maharaj about the parikram and the ongoings, etc. So it is a wonderful time to be alive and to have such connection through internet, and it's being fully embraced also out of necessity, because in any normal situation, all of us, most of us, would actually be right now in Vrindavan, covered in dust and smoke in our nose from the kitchen that are banging the pots, making prasadam for all the thousands of pilgrims, etc. But now here we are in the comforts of our home, but still feeling somewhat empty and bereft. And, although we have everything here, it's very convenient, but still we are missing this special ras, this special flavor, this specialty of being, with our devotee family and our Gurudev, who we miss every day and meditate on for inspiration and to keep us on the path of bhakti. And so we're being asked to share some of the memories in light of Srila Gurudev's beautiful centennial celebrations, and also of the celebrations of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada, our, you know, I don't know if we could call him the father of the Sankirtan movement, because that is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he's definitely a key figure in the history books and in the line. That's without a doubt. I took down a few points just so that I can collect my thoughts a little bit while I was listening to Ban Maharaj and Balabhadra Prabhu and Raghunatha Prabhu. So many wonderful things are coming up. It's amazing how much knowledge and mercy and nectar is stored in the heart of the devotees, and any opportunity that arrives, so, you know, the devotees will open up and gladly share those beautiful, fragrant flowers and gems and, you know, wisdoms that have been collected and have been sort of like, also, they weren't just collected and stored, but it seems like some curing has gone on, you know, like it's become more than what it initially might have been. So my first encounter with Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, was in 1990 or 1991, when I was doing the, you know, I had just joined the temple in Amsterdam. I'm from Holland. And Sriman Brajanath Prabhu and his wife, they were the sort of temple president or co-president, or it wasn't really clear, but it was clear that they were in some managing role. And they would go to Vrindavan and especially Brinda Didi, whose name was Tulasi Vrindavan Dasi. She was doing the parikram with Lokanath Maharaj, and I was joining as a new bhakta. I was totally, completely clueless. All I knew was like, gotta chant Hare Krishna and stay out of trouble, and life will be perfect, right? I was doing some studies at the VIHE, the Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education, etc. But the highlights were the parikrams, like going out, you know, seeing the sadhus and the babas, and so every year it was custom to stop by the Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, because the Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math is very significant for us, because it is the place where not only, you know, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established the Math. The Math was managed, maintained, and made glorious by Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj and so many other Vaisnavas and his disciples, but it was also the place where our Srila Prabhupada had received sannyas. So it was a must for us to go and pay pranams to the dust, and also the deity, the Mahaprabhu deity there. There's one set of deities, or there's more sets, but it's Gauranga and Radha Vinod Bihari. Now this Gauranga deity was originally owned and worshipped and established by Srila Prabhupada in Jhansi, which is where he first established the League of Devotees. Before anything ISKCON, before even taking sannyas, Prabhupada had this mission that he set up, and he had a deity, Mahaprabhu deity, and that deity, since the mission did not continue, or was discontinued, and the deity needed a place, and the perfect place for the deity up till now was in the Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math. So there's a very strong link there already. So this is 1990 or 91, I forget. But so you can already see, wow, there's some special connection there. I didn't know much of the politics. Maybe the politics weren't even happening yet. I also do remember that while I was staying in the Gurukul in Vrindavan, that Srila Narayan Maharaj would visit every year for Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, which happens right in the month of Kartik, towards the end. I think it's 10 days before the end of Kartik, and Srila Narayan Maharaj would come with his entourage, with some of his brahmacharis, and he would be received with all the decorum and etiquette of exchanging flower garlands and touching of feet and offering a proper seat and microphone to speak something about the glories of Srila Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, who Gurudev Srila Narayan Maharaj would consider his Siksha Guru. So it was always very beautiful and wonderful, and I always thought, like, how beautiful that these different families, like, I'm not aware of, I'm just a bhakta, I don't know anything about ISKCON, Gaudiya Math, and all the so-called fighting, all that later, I learned later. but I was happy. I was blissful, and I was kind of like staying close with Ayendra Prabhu, who would speak a lot to me. The 24-hour Kirtan organizer, department head, and he would speak to me a lot about, especially Guru Tattva. So I felt like what he was saying felt very right, as opposed to some of my well-meaning sort of, fellow Bhakta program participants, young devotees, maybe some older devotees that were talking to me in a way, oftentimes trying to sell their guru or sell the program they were on, or trying to enlist me or recruit me. And I always felt a little uneasy, but I had no problems with that. I always knew that if I follow my heart and pray, that Guru will reveal. So long story short, I ended up being initiated by my Gurudev, Srila Gurudeva Goswami Maharaj, and whom I consider to be my end all be all, everything, in the savior of my life, like honestly. And living there and serving him, at some point I would actually take up the service of transcribing his lectures and printing those into books or booklets. And I was highly inspired by the books that I saw that were being published and coming out of Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, meaning Sri Narayana Maharaj. So his books were largely based on, and also the books of Srila Sridhar Maharaj really inspired me. And I learned that those books weren't written, but they were transcribed from lectures that were recorded and then written out and then edited for clarity and brevity and accuracy. And then they were printed and distributed. I thought, what a wonderful way. We should do that also with our Guru Maharaj. So I started doing this and mirroring or, taking great inspiration from the books that I was seeing from Sri Narayana Maharaj. So at some point, those books also need to be distributed, which always gave me a wonderful excuse to go to Vrindavan. So in '92, we printed the first book, and I ended up going to Vrindavan. And I ran into Brajanath Prabhu, who was initially my sort of temple commander. But by now, he had been initiated and been associated very closely with Sri Narayana Maharaj. And he invited me to come over to Seva Kunj, to Sri Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math, to come and see Maharaj, and just to say hello, basically. And I was like, that's a great idea. And so I went there with a gift, which is my Guru Maharaj's book, and I presented, and Maharaj, I have a present for you. I wanted to present it to you. And he was very appreciative, and he asked Brajanath Prabhu to get some of his books, which I think was Beyond Vaikuntha or Going Beyond Vaikuntha and the Nectar of Govinda Lila, right? So I touched them to my head. I already had those books and read those books, but I kept them as a present to give to my Gurudev. So long story short, as I went back to Bhubaneswar, I would arrive late sometimes, like 9-10 p.m. by train. Oh, hellish train ride from Vrindavan is like easily 40 hours, like completely dusty and fried in the brain and everything else. But upon seeing, the lotus feet of my Gurudev, like I feel fresh like anything. And so Guru Maharaj would, he would gesture at me like, come. So I would give my pranams and he would go like this, he wouldn't say much. He would just nod his head, like, as in, so how did it go? Anything, So I would give a report. I said, well, Gurudev, we met this devotee, very nice devotee. We did a book table. I met one nice boy. His name is, I forget, George. He ended up being Acharya Ratna Prabhu and from England. And then I met some other devotees, maybe some Prabhupada's disciples. Some were very appreciative, some were less appreciative, but there was always an interesting exchange and some nice things to report. Some of the bookshops that wanted to have books that I left there. By hook or by crook, we were trying to get those books out. I was not very aggressive because I was also aware that some of my well-meaning God brothers were creating a little bit of problem because they were pushing so hard what they had learned from our Gurudev, like regards to Guru Tattva, Jiva Tattva, and so many Tattvas. But I didn't feel it was right for me to have these kind of battles with devotees. I just wanted to be there, make the books available. It was not about me. But not that I was any better or had a better approach, but that was just my personality at that time. And so, you know, a few books, nothing really major, but one major thing is that I wanted to mention that I had handed his books in the hands of Sri Narayan Maharaj. You know, because at that time, living in Bhubaneswar, we didn't really go anywhere, and not a lot of devotees would visit us, only occasionally, mostly on their way to Puri. They would stop in Bhubaneswar, give some Dandavat pranams, maybe sitting in our Guru Maharaj's class for, you know, 15 minutes, and then get up and go. And the class would usually last maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. But there was always this talk about Sri Narayan Maharaj, the GBC, you know, messages were coming out that there was some friction, there was some issues, and our Guru Maharaj was often asked about it, and he would always like make sure that we do not get involved in this committing of aparat, collective aparat, or thinking even poorly or badly or critically of Maharaj, who's a great Vaishnava, etc. So when I mentioned to my Guru Maharaj at, you know, this late hour, upon my return and giving a report that I had handed the books, he became very happy, and I handed him the books that Sri Narayan had given me to give to my Gurudev. And he says, "Oh, very good, thank you very much." So he got up and went straight into his hut. I don't know if you've seen pictures, but he used to stay in a hut, you know, like that he built pretty much with his own hands to stay on the land that was donated, that was really rough. And that hut, I think most of it has been demolished over time, which is very, 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 very sad. But yeah, Prabhupada stayed there also for 17 days. He had made a special arrangement for Srila Prabhupada, although he had made arrangements in the guest house in Bhubaneswar, in the city, you know, proper guest house for Prabhupada to stay. But Prabhupada said, no, I won't stay there. Why would I stay there? I want to stay here in the place that my own child has made with his own hand. And so Prabhupada stayed there for 17 days. But so our Guru Maharaj went into that hut and for the night, and I went up and did my thing, had a shower and laid down and got up the next morning for the program, and going through the normal program of, you know, morning Kirtan and Tulsi Puja Kirtan and Japa and Guru Puja. And then our Guru Maharaj would give and speak class. And usually the class was in two parts. The beginning was all in Uriya, and the latter part was in English. Now, if you thought, oh, I'm English, so I'll just get up for the Uriya part and then do some things and then come back for the English part, that was not the way to do it. Like, he would pick on you, he would tell you how much of a nonsense you were, because Shabda Brahma has nothing to do with language. So he would force us to sit through the Uriya. So actually, if you were a bit smart, you would actually learn a lot of Uriya. So the English part would start, and our Guru Maharaj was speaking. I don't know exactly what the verse was or what the topic was, but at some point, he started speaking and narrating a lila. And that lila was, I had read this book, The Nectar of Govinda Lila by Sri Narayan Maharaj. I had read it before I even went to Vrindavan. And so when I heard my Guru Maharaj speak this particular lila that I knew was from this book, I was like, oh, he's read this book. I gave him the book and he read it, like even at 10 p.m. when I left to go up and he went in. He must have taken this time out to read this book. How wonderful. So I was really like, I could see how much appreciation and endorsement, and, you know, if there was any controversy or any, like, there was no doubt in my mind how much love and appreciation and respect and admiration really there was, like, mutually. But I don't think Sri Narayan Maharaj knew much about my Guru Maharaj until, you know, later years. But to me, that was just such a wonderful moment, you know, like, so we're talking about 90, I think this is 94, you know, so quite a lot of the GBC problems with Gurudeva had started, you know, the cracks were developing, and there were, you know, statements made, and unfortunate, it was an unfortunate situation. And so, but, you know, we are there in Bhubaneswar. I had all of Maharaj's books, Narayan Maharaj's books. I was doing mostly book editing, book publishing and stuff. And we were staying in a house, and with some other devotees like Madhavananda Prabhu and Rasikananda Prabhu and Jagadish Prabhu. And I was always listening to Sri Narayan Maharaj's Kirtan. I was always listening to his Kirtans while I was doing my work. To me, that was just beautiful Kirtan, which is wonderful. But you can see how Gurudev has influenced the style of Kirtan so much throughout ISKCON. You know, like people like Agni Dev, who's like a Kirtan king, you know, who has taken many or borrowed or adopted many of the melodies that Gurudev had sort of initiated and instated, you know, in the proper way of doing, you know, Gur Kirtan and Braj Ras and all that. So you can see so many little pieces of that have been influenced by Gurudev's presence, by his bhajan, by his practicing of devotional service, by his preaching, etc. It's unbelievable. Now fast forward a little bit to 1996, or actually prior to 96. So our Guru Maharaj would often say somehow that there is a professor and he is doing all this research at the Utkal University, which is the University of Orissa. Utkal is another name for Orissa. And he's a Gaudiya Vaishnava, and he has come up with this one scripture, and by a poet named Kanu Priya Goswami, and in that he says that so many years, so I forget the number now, the other day we were trying to get it right, I forget the number, it's 500 or 510 years after the appearance or disappearance perhaps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we are talking 1996, that's the year that was being indicated by the calculation. In 1996, there will be a Prem Yuga. A Prem Yuga will commence, you know. So we were always wondering, what does that mean? You know, Prem Yuga will commence, you know, because we are in Kali Yuga, everything is rotten, everyone's quarreling, everyone's fighting, the world is polluted, you know, and that was in 96, so let alone right now. So we're always wondering what's going on with this Kanu Priya Goswami, and what is this, you know, like this prediction, right? So what does it mean? Like, what's going to happen? We always think about our Guru Maharaj, it's like something's going to happen. Anyway, we all know what happened, and for those who don't, I'll try to keep it short. Our Guru Maharaj went out for a preaching in South Africa. He came back around February. He observed the Nityananda festival in Bhubaneswar, and then he would go straight to the GBC meetings in Mayapur and had all these meetings that were not his favorite activity, but it was part of his service, so he would oblige. But in the evening times, he would always like receive devotees in his room and speak very nice and sweet Harikatha. Now he had ordered me to stay behind. I was not in India. I was in Singapore. I was working on a book called The Embankment of Separation, which is based on his classes, very intimate Harikatha about the significance of why Mahaprabhu stayed in Jagannath Puri. And so I was working on that book, and our Guru Maharaj was there in Mayapur in his room speaking very beautiful Harikatha. Actually, he was speaking the same topic that I was printing in this one book that he was sort of like asked to speak on by some very dear devotees that we all know, senior devotees. And so he actually ended up speaking and could not continue speaking because, you know, he got choked up, or, you know, there are many, many different ways of interpreting, but he basically entered into Mahasamadhi, and he left his body like right there in front of everyone. His heartbeat stopped, his body became, you know, so he entered into Samadhi, and he was put into Samadhi, and so we were shocked. We were totally shocked. This is 96 February. It's on the appearance day of Srila BhaktiVinoda Saraswati Thakur. We were all in shock, and I got the news actually from Tapasri Maharaj, who had just come back from India and had arrived in Singapore where we were staying, or actually it was in Malaysia, where we were all staying. And he says, "Oh, Guru Maharaj has left his body last night." And I was like, yeah, I know. I had this kind of dream. I don't know. It was very weird that I had this dream. Like it almost didn't come even as a shock. But we all went to India, and long story short, we ended up visiting Srila Narayana Maharaj at the Devananda Gaudiya Mutt, and as well as Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, to give our pranams and to ask for mercy and guidance in this very difficult time for us. Like there was no sign that our Guru Maharaj would ever leave, but he did leave, and we were orphans all of a sudden. We didn't know what to do, where to go, who to pray to. The only thing I could liken this to is like when the gopis, when Akrura took Krishna away from Vrindavan, and the gopis were ready to give up their lives. But if they would to give up their lives, that would not please Krishna. So that's why they did not give up their lives. But otherwise, they would have given up their lives 1,000 times. I can tell you honestly, that's kind of similar how we all felt. And then we came to Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, who gave us so much words of solace, as well as Srila Narayan Maharaj, who was in Devananda Gaudiya Math, who was just there to help. He says, I want to help you and all this, like, you know. So there was already a connection, and the connection was getting a little bit deeper. I have to track back a little bit. We were all staying in Singapore, in Malaysia, frequently at the house of Gokul Das and myself. We had a few apartments that we were renting, and there was also Urukram Prabhu, who's now Padmanabha Maharaj, and there was also Pran Kishore Prabhu, who was also staying there collecting money for their projects and travels to India and their sevas. And we didn't know them, but we had run into each other. And they were followers of, they were Prabhupada disciples, they were Siksha disciples of Srila Bhakti Rakshakshira Maharaj, and they were Siksha disciples of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. So we were like exchanging a lot of nectar and comparing a lot of notes, like, oh, Aguma said this, oh, Aguma said the same thing, and like, but different angles. And so there was a lot of churning going on until we heard the news that Aguma had departed. So there was already, so in our hearts were being prepared, I feel, you know. So, and then we got the news that Guru Maharaj, that Gurudev Sri Narayan Maharaj was going to embark upon his first world tour in 96. So we're thinking about, oh, 96, Prem Yuga. You know, this Kanupriya Goswami had predicted this Prem Yuga will commence. Like, wow, okay. So the things are happening here. So, and the rest is history, but Gokul Das and myself decided, like, wow, we should really join this world tour, because this is going to be like amazing, you know. So we booked our tickets, and we flew to LA, and we joined up with Gurudev. I think, I don't know if you showed it, Anand Prabhu was there, or I think so, yeah, that first world tour. So we were all there in Badger and other places, so many other places where Gurudev, I've not come to take anything here. I'm here only to give Pushpanjali and take the dust where Swami Prabhupada has gone, and give my and try to help the devotees that are drying up and that have been praying, you know, for help, for inspiration, for guidance and affection. And Gurudev just did just that, and we saw with our own eyes how he was like bringing back to life these, you know, these dried up little bhakti plants that were still full of bhakti, but it needed something, a special touch, you know. The circumstances had made it impossible, but you know, for them to flourish, you know, given the situation in our society. And so Gurudev really, like, you know, he brought them back to life. It was wonderful to see, and just the effect that he had everywhere he went. It was like, you know, he was wanting to hear from them about their relationship with Srila Prabhupada and how it had made such an impact. And Gurudev was just like, he was in awe to see how many devotees had given up their youth, you know, to go and sell books. Balabhadra Prabhu was just speaking about the importance of, you know, to read, study, and hear and distribute, preserve, you know, these granthas that are not material books, you know. And so these devotees had given up their youth, you know, when others are going to university, are finding a spouse, are getting a home and with a picket fence and, you know, a cat and a dog and all that, sort of like the normal kind of like American way or Western way. But no, they gave all that up to serve Prabhupada. And there were no facilities, you know, everything was just like whatever you could grab, that's, you know, that's your service, and that's how you're going to do it. There was no facilities like we have all these facilities in the world right now. The other day, you showed Anand Prabhu and myself, we're talking about how lucky we actually are, because, you know, we're talking a little bit about the various temples and preaching centers, and would you prefer to go to this one, or would you prefer to go to that one? And it's like, wow, what a world that we live in. Like, just imagine 50 years ago. I mean, we don't have any choice. Like, would you prefer to go to this preaching center? Like, there were no preaching centers. You were the preaching center, and you had to, and that's what devotees did. They touched the lives of so many others, and they followed them back to the temple. from Harinam Sankirtan that was being done. And so Gurudev, he was just listening. He was just filling his own heart with so much appreciation, giving so much honor to how these devotees were all touched by Srila Prabhupada. And he was talking about the relationship that he had with Srila Prabhupada before Prabhupada even came to the West, and how they would roll chapatis together and discuss Siddhanta, and how Srila Prabhupada would, preach in English and have Gurudev and his brahmacharis sit in class and listen to the Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada give lecture in English. He was practicing, and they were also learning, and it was all part of this big world vision in his heart. It was already there. He wanted to serve his Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There was nothing else in the world worth living for, only to fulfill that mission. And Gurudev, going around America on that first world tour in '96, he was just wanting to hear all these various pastimes and the relationships and the anecdotes and the humorous moments and the defining moments, and to serve that and to water that and to bring that back to life and to make it bigger and to bring back that same spirit. And we see it, we've seen it, the wave, the Prem Yuga that Srinarama Srila Gurudev had caused is tremendous. That first, so we're talking June, July of '96, and come October. So of course, wherever Gurudev was, he's like, please, I invite you, come to Vrindavan for Kartik. So, all these devotees were showing up in October in the case of Yugodia Mad, which is not built for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pilgrims. So it was like the first parikram. Well, it was not the first parikram, because I know there had been parikrams with Western devotees that were way smaller and more intimate. But I felt like this is Gurudev's first world tour, and he came back and he had collected all these beautiful flowers that he wanted to offer in the hands of Srimati Radhika, who would offer them to Krishna, and it was just a beautiful sight to see. And I've seen so many tears, from devotees that were just so touched and feeling like they were saved once and now they were saved again. And it's just, I don't know how to say it. It is the most wonderful thing. I want to add one more story. I don't know how timing is going, but I just
about 3 minutes.
Okay, so so at some point I was living in Singapore with the devotees. There was Gokul, there was Pran Kishore and his wife, and there was, I think, Ananta Tapasri Maharaj also staying there in one apartment. It was like a condominium block with it almost looked like a resort with palm trees and swimming pool, and it was very nice. And so I figured, hey, Brajinath Prabhu, when you come to Singapore next, because Gurudev would stop in Singapore and go about to Bali or to Australia, and he would spend a week or so in Singapore to preach to the devotees there. Those from Malaysia would come down, and I had a nice apartment that I thought, like, maybe Gurudev could stay here. And then Brajinath Prabhu, who's my old friend, he made it happen, and so Gurudev came to stay with us in our house, and that was like, wow, how wonderful, how amazing. But Gurudev, he never comes alone. So there we were, like we're attending to Gurudev, making sure the kitchen was all right, making sure the bathroom was all right, making sure the program could take place, and then all of a sudden I got a phone call from my landlord, and she's like, what's going on? In Chinese accent, but I don't want to go mimic the Chinese accent, but it was very cute. And I was like, I don't know. She's like, well, the whole swimming pool has been taken over by orange, cloth. And I looked out the window and I was like, oh my God, because there was a swimming pool. I think Budara Prabhu was there. There was a swimming pool, and all the devotees, just like on Parikram, were just washing their dhotis and hanging their kopin and kamshas and making bombs and anything, because it was a play yard. There was kids, there was barbecue, there was tennis. It was like a little resort. And so I was like, oh, and there were easily 50 devotees taking over the place. And I was talking to my landlord. I said, well, we're having a small gathering. And we hadn't even started the Kirtan yet. So, I don't know how we pulled it off, but it all worked out, of course, in the end, as it always does. but it just gave such a beautiful memory. And not only does it give a beautiful memory, so of course, you know, we have a little slight bhakti self-interest, you know, because when we offer anything to Gurudev, he may use it once and then leave it with us, and then we can worship those items. So that is exactly what we are seeing here. These have been with me for on all my world travels and other places. These are the shoes that Gurudev wore, or actually like more like house slippers. So you can all maybe touch your screen and touch your you know, to your head and get some blessings here. I'll you know, I'll go first. But he wore those in our house. They're like common house slippers. We got them at IKEA, and we dyed them orange. You know? But they've been with me. They've been with me for all these years. And I know Gurudev always said, like, I was never so much interested in collecting the items of my Guru Maharaj, but I was interested in collecting the moods in my heart. But I'm still very, very happy with this item. And it's on my altar. And sometimes people that are not devotees will inquire, like, you know, why do you keep shoes there? Whose shoes are those? So, but which is always a beautiful lead into a beautiful pastime, a beautiful conversation. So let's talk. So, all righty. So, well, I want to thank you all for organizing this wonderful satsang, this Zoom Kirtan, giving this, you know, rotten, dried up soul somehow some opportunity to speak something. You know, it's, you know, I don't have the qualities that I see in so many of you, which I aspire for, but I do have great love for the devotees, and I'm very grateful to have had Guru Maharaj in my life, even although I've not taken advantage. That is my lamentation. But with the mercy of the Vaisnavas, I am always hopeful. I'm never hopeless. I'm always hopeful that someday a change will come in my heart, that I will dedicate myself fully to the lotus feet of our Guru Varga. So thank you very much, devotees. Vanchakalpa trubhyasya kripa sindhubhyavasta patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sri Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai, Nitai Gautamanandi, Hari Hari. Thank you, sir.
Reverend brother, that was just relishable. Because there was, I was shifting from laughter to tears and back again several times, which reminded me of Srila Gurudev. But I think Srila Gurudeva Memories was the same, because Gurudev said, you know, a day is not complete for him unless he's laughed and cried each day. So I think your offering really encapsulated that really beautifully. And also, I was taken to a really lofty, beautiful, above the clouds vision. Kind of two things that I really got out of what you were saying was how everything is reconciled at the Guru level. They are so in harmony. Going back to Raghunatha Das's offering about how they are all mandaris coming down as acharyas. These great personalities reconcile everything. If we can see things through their eyes, then reconciliation of all the so-called differences are nothing. And in fact, I read the other day that was it Srila, I think it was two of the acharyas, Rakshak Srila Maharaj and I think Srila Prabhupada. I may have got one of them wrong, but they used to stage kind of be on the Vyasa-san, arguing their differences to demonstrate how you can have love and affection irrespective of differences.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I introduced you as somebody who really had that vision of non-sectarianism, and for the Prema Yuga to really accelerate and intensify as it's prognosticated it will. This is the vision that we really need. So thank you so much for your beautiful offering.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yashodananda Prabhu, I think it was Bhakti Pragyan Kesha Swami Maharaj and Bhakti Rakshak Siddhar Maharaj. There's a story with both of them as well, arguing on stage many times actually. So that was, just want to say that. Thank you so much for those devotees that have spoken already. We're going to move to our last speaker. It's someone that is a beautiful god sister of ours who sits in the background, disappears, but is always there when you need her. She's sitting in the, I think she's sitting in some countryside somewhere in Buxton. Oh, the Buxton water comes from there where she is. And she's an amazing Kirtaniya. She's understood the heart of Srila Gurudev. I believe when I speak to her, I feel very inclined to speak to her and feel close to Srila Gurudev when she speaks. So it is none other than our Lavanga Lata Didi from UK. Hari, Hari, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Dandavat Pranams, everybody. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Sharakaya Chakshunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadare Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams, everybody. I've been taken on a whirlwind today, and thank you so much to everybody who's spoken. Raghava, Pandit, Prabhu, honestly, I can echo what Yashodananda Prabhu just said. You know, the laughing and the crying, and you just took me on a journey. And actually, without you knowing it, you took me on a journey that kind of reminded me of so many connections, actually, because when you were talking about 96 and when Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj left, that was when I just met my husband, who was my first guru, if you like, because he brought me to Krishna consciousness, and he loved Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj so much. His name is Sundarananda Prabhu, and he's in France. He's a French devotee. And I remember him crying, standing in a guest house. We were actually in Singapore, and he was crying and crying and crying. And I was like, what is this? I don't understand. Why are you crying, you know? And he was crying with regret that he had left that association that he'd had in Bhubaneswar, and he'd left the association of devotees. But I'm eternally grateful for that, because, you know, he came and got me from a nightclub in Hong Kong, you know, like that's how we met, and that's how he brought me to Krishna consciousness, and he gave me Bhagavad Gita. And it was when I read Bhagavad Gita that I was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for, you know. So you took me back to hearing about Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, and we were staying in Singapore, and we were going in Little India, and I was going out and getting like a jasmine garland and offering it to a picture of Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj. This is after he left, and listening to his tapes was the first Harikatha I'd ever listened to, you know. So yeah, it was beautiful. And then, you know, you tying that up with Srila Gurudev, and your, you know, Srila Gurudev's history, life history, you know. And I can't glorify Gurudev, like, you know, I don't know anything about Guru Tattva. And actually, when I listen to you all speaking, you know, all the devotees that have got such a history of being with their Gurudev, like I get a bit of vertigo, you know. I just can't quite understand how I came into contact with that, but I did, you know. My logical mind can't understand it. And you know, when we were listening to Sripad Bhaktivedanta Van Maharaj, you know, he was giving us the life history of Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj, and like the Vaisnavas Leela is like extraordinary, you know, and I feel like a sense of vertigo when I hear it. And but anyhow, I did come into contact with Srila Gurudev, and goodness knows how, but I did. And what I'm beginning to understand now, 20 years on, is that, you know, at that time, what you mentioned about Srila Gurudev traveling around in 96 and wanting to hear about all the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada and all the Srila Prabhupada devotees, their experiences. What I'm now realizing 20 years on is that at a time when I met Gurudev and I was completely new, there were and I was hearing all these amazing things that Gurudev was speaking on Brajmandal Parikram. There were devotees there who were ready to hear that. You know, they were ready to completely surrender and give their lives again, like they had for Srila Prabhupada. And I'm in awe of that. I'm in awe of that, and I'm in awe of how I came into, you know, how on earth was I there? You know, it's like this prem, what did you call it? Prem yuga, and like a wave, you know. So I'm like this tiny little fish that's just been, you know, somehow I got caught up in all that, and that's my experience. So I just wanted to share with you how Gurudev made me feel, because that's all I can share. I can't share, I don't know Guru Tattva, I don't know these things, but I just wanted to share a little bit how he made me feel and how intimate that was, you know. So I was lucky enough to meet Srila Gurudev in New Mayapur in France, and then shortly after went to Rajmandal Parikram. And, you know, it was 97, and it was a time when he was still going out on Parikram. And, you know, even in New Mayapur, he kind of just captured my heart. And I literally had only been with the devotees for a few weeks. I didn't know anything about the philosophy or anything, but I remember going into his room, and I was like, oh, I'm going to ask him a question. And somebody, I think Raghunatha or I think maybe Jayantakrit Prabhu, he's now Sripad Shridadvaiti Maharaj. He said, oh, this girl wants to ask you a question. So I'm like, yeah, I'm this stupid question was like, how can I help my husband to be a better devotee or something? You know, it was like so arrogant. But he just looked at me, and I burst into tears, like spontaneously. You know, at that moment, it was like I'd taken a breath for the very first time. It was like I'd been holding my breath for the whole of my life, and suddenly I took a breath, you know, and the relief was unbelievable. And I just cried and cried and cried. I couldn't actually get my question out, even though I was trying really hard. And in that moment, Gurudev, he kind of showed me that he could see me, you know. It was like I was seen for the very first time. And that was beautiful. And then so I was captured, completely captured, and I was like a little girl again, you know. And then I went to Brajmandal Parikram, and then I arrived in Mathura, and like Radhika Didi a couple of weeks ago, she was talking about, you know, that look, you're waiting for that look from Srila Gurudev, you know, all you needed was that look. And I was just at the beginning of that journey, and there were all the devotees around me. Gurudev had gone away for somewhere, and he was returning. So they were down at the bottom of Keshavji Gaudiya mat, and everyone was excited. And when he entered the mat at the bottom, like there must have been 50 devotees around him, and I was at least 50 yards away from him. But he gave me a glance, and it felt like, oh, I've come home, you know? I mean, what I'm trying to describe is that he just gave me a glimpse of that, you know, and I realized when Sripad Bhaktivedanta Van Maharaj was speaking, and he was talking about Srila Vana Maharaj, then Santosh, when he came and he was like, no, this is my home, I'm staying here. And I'm like, okay. So Gurudev was just giving like a little glance of that. One day, maybe I'll actually really genuinely feel like that and surrender, you know, but just at that point, that was just an amazing experience as well. So Gurudev also, he made me feel like I was his daughter. And one of the ways in which he did that was when I asked for Harinam. You know, I went into his room and I said, oh, Gurudev, will you give me Harinam? You know, I didn't know what I was asking for at all. And he really let me know that, you know, like he was quite heavy with me, and he looked at me, and I'm not going to be able to do it properly, but he was just like, do you know what is Harinam? And then he goes, it is not a toy. You know, he was so heavy. And I ran out of the room crying. And but at the same time, although he was heavy and it was upsetting, like he let me know in that moment that he could see in front of all my duplicity, all my kind of sense of what I am and who I am. He could see all beyond that. And he let me know that. And at the same time, every time he did that kind of operation, it was always done with so much love as well. Even though he was so heavy, there was so much love in it that I felt completely accepted at the same time. It was like he just let me know in that moment, yeah, I can see all the nasty, dirty, horrible things in your heart, all the things that you're just so incredibly embarrassed and ashamed of. I can see all that, but you're still my daughter, you know? And that mood of intimacy, it's never left me, you know, and that's how I feel about him, you know. He made me cringe at that moment, but it was also like overwhelming relief that I was seen and accepted, you know. What else? What else can I share with you? Oh, Parikram. So I know that you've all probably got loads of memories of Parikram, so I'm sorry that I'm taking up your time with mine, but hopefully they're like Udipan for you as well, you know, to remember. But somehow he made a connection with all those different places. So he, you know, I remember going to Kaliyarada and Tirkadamba, being at the foot of Giriraj, and Gurudev made a connection, and it was just by being with him there, or it might be by a glance, or, you know, I had moments when like Raghunatha Prabhu, he was talking about how all our acharyas there are manjaris, you know, and I had a moment, I remember sitting in class one time, and I was sitting next to Vishaka Didi, and I was like, is it wrong to see that he's not like a man, you know? And and he was so graceful and so beautiful, you know, he just gave some little impression of that world. And he, every place that we went, especially that first year in Parikram, I remember bowing down my head, like Vishaka Didi had said to me, oh, you know, you can't come to Vrindavan by train or by plane, you know, and it was such a mystical experience, you know. And everywhere I went, you know, I'd heard Gurudev say, you know, our goal is Radha Dasham. I didn't know what Radha Dasham was, but I just remember praying for that because Gurudev had said, pray for that. But he made that connection with all those places and made me feel like, oh, Giriraj is mine, you know, Yamuna is mine. So it just gave like a little impression of that. And I'm also really grateful for the morning program. Like we would sing all the ashtakams and, you know, Manindra Vindavandite and, you know, Damodarastakam. And now I'm so grateful for that because my actual practice is so weak. But then that time has given me those ashtakams and some of those prayers, that seriousness at that time. Like now I can pick those prayers up again, and I'm so grateful for it because my actual practice is so weak. But you know, he made those connections with all of that at that time, and just also knowledge of our goal. You know, like I didn't come through ISKCON. I didn't know anything of the philosophy. And now I understand that I was sitting there listening to these amazing, beautiful pastimes, Damodar Leela, and you know, at Terkadamba, like the Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, and how they cooked the sweet rice. And oh, it was actually Radhika, wasn't it? Anyway, I can't tell Leela at all. I can't tell these, but something was sown in my heart. You know, I was listening to those Leelas and the philosophy as well. Like, I can't speak it. I haven't absorbed it properly, but somewhere inside me, I know what my goal is, you know, like I know that I'm not going to go off and worship Narayan or something, you know, like my goal is to worship Radharani and to serve her, you know. And Gurudev always gave like great hope about that. He used to talk about, you know, if a young boy wanted to marry Princess Diana, you know, and how hopeless that would be, like if a beggar in the street wanted to marry Princess Diana. But he used to talk about how he'd have greed for that. So he gave that aspiration that we should have greed for this thing, even though it's so high. What else can I tell you? He was also so caring. You know, I remember staying at the foot of Giriraj in Modi Bhavan, and I remember the very first year I was there with Hari Priya Didi, and we'd found somewhere to sleep in like a corridor or something. anyway, we were just setting up our little mosquito net and stuff, and Gurudev came out of his room and he beckoned to us, and he wanted to know if everybody was okay. He wanted to know if everybody had found somewhere to sleep. I think he was aware that the Parikram party was growing bigger. And I'll never forget those moments, I'll never forget coming to Mathura, like Raghava Pandit Prabhu, you spoke about, coming back to see Srila Gurudeva Maharaj, and after a long train journey, like you'd see him and you'd be all fresh again. And I had that experience coming from the UK one time, arriving in Mathura, and I'd flown into Delhi and I'd gone to Mathura by train, and then I got on a rickshaw and arrived at Shikeshavji Gaudiya and ran upstairs to see Gurudev, and he'd given darshan already and he was just going in, and so I'd kind of missed him, but then he was just going in, and he was so merciful, and I was in such a state, my life is like, I don't know how to be a devotee at all, and I'd come and I was just, I was all over the place, mentally, physically, emotionally, all over the place, and I just went, Srila Gurudev, I'm here, and he brought me into his room up at the top of Keshavji Gaudiya mat, and he didn't say anything, and he didn't need to, he just sat on his bed, and he reached over and got a box of prasadam, and just, I think it was prasadam from Jagannath Puri, maybe, it looked like that, and he just gave me some prasadam and gave me blessings, and then he gave me the box and told me, and he kind of indicated to put it underneath his bed, and then I paid my obeisances and went out, and I just sat outside his room cherishing that prasadam, just going, oh yeah, now I'm here and I can be, yeah, that prasadam was so purifying, and it just he made me feel like everything was all right. Whatever state I was in, he always made me feel like everything was all right and everything was going to be all right. So he's my beloved father, and more than that, and I'm so grateful to be given a chance to share those memories. And I'm just, now 20 years on, like I haven't been able to take his instructions. I don't understand his instructions, his moods, anything, but I'm so grateful for having this Sangha on Zoom, because like I'm stuck in the middle of the hills and trying to do a little bit of sadhana amongst, my Kali Yuga life. And it's so encouraging to hear other people's stories of how they came to Krishna consciousness and the connections that they've had with our amazing acharyas and the journey that they've been on. It gives me hope and it gives me connection with you all. And I really hope one day I can serve like you guys. That would be amazing. Anyway, I'm asking for your blessings, especially like we just started this Kartik month, and yeah, it's so lovely to remember all those places that we went with Srila Gurudev, and I'm really grateful for your association, and sorry if I've gone on a little bit, and thank you very much for letting me share that. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Let me unmute myself, because obviously I've been talking and I'm just on mute. Firstly, thank you so much, Lavanga Didi, for sharing such beautiful pastimes. Actually, it's funny, like when you were saying like that glance, we've all had that glance and we've all had that moment, but it's so different and embedded in so many different impressions for us in so many different ways. And that glance is like so personal. It was never like, oh, that's the one glance that everyone gets. It was, no, I'm going and I'm gonna look at you specifically because you're asking for me to look at you. And Gurudev, Gurudev was not just Gurudev, any Vaishnav anyway, but Gurudev in particular. You were talking about, I don't personally think there's anything wrong with you. I'm talking about myself in terms of like there's so much anartha in my heart, like it's unbelievable. But Gurudev, he took that one part that was okay and was like, that's okay, I will have that. And he gave us that moment, and he gave us that okay, it's okay, it doesn't matter how terrible you are, I'm with you, and I'm gonna stay with you. And so a part of us, when we're going through this journey of being separated from Srila Gurudev for 10 years, it's kind of like, it's okay. You know, I'm learning now that it's okay, because he's beside me, he's not going anywhere. And you know, these memories are, you know, he didn't just give them for the sake of giving them, he gave them so that he could give these impressions that now you can remember Govardhan Puja and Anukut, what it was like, and go back to that place with Srila Gurudev. And so we're so fortunate to have this memories and these personal impressions. I mean, I wasn't fortunate, but to hear these personal impressions that have been given on so many of Gurudev's and Guru Varga devotees and disciples, that I'm able to actually even relish from it. So thank you so much for ending our Katha this week, of remembering our Guru Varga so beautifully. Thank you for reminding me of Srila Gurudev's time with us. So I think we're at the end, and I think
Just want to make
Radhika,
a couple of announcements.
Yeah, and then
No, you should I? Just
Yeah.
a couple of announcements before Kirtan. I have to say, every week I think, wow, the last week was amazing. Or the previous week, I think this week was amazing. How is it possible that next week is going to be as good? But every week it just seems to get more and more beautiful, building it up each week. It's just tremendous. So thank you to our beautiful speakers. Lavanga, Lata, thank you so much. I didn't know where Buxton was. You're not that far from the Gangas, the new Ganga place. That's really cool.
It's a little far, but yeah, it's
You're closer than I am. Yeah.
Still the north.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for your contribution, for your offering. 3 quick announcements. Just to remind everybody, next week, the glorification of Gurudev is back on at midday, not 11 o'clock. That's the first announcement. The second announcement is, would love to see you all for the Kartik class this evening, which is at 6 p.m. UK time, which is 1 p.m. EST. And we have our wonderful, illustrious, amazing Srimati Radharani Didi. She'll be speaking. That's at 6 p.m. Huh?
Shamarani Didi.
Shamarani, yeah.
You said Radharani.
Oh, Radharani. Oh, that might be a Freudian slip. Yeah. Yeah, Shamarani Didi. And that's at 6 p.m. And that's in a different Zoom room. And we'll also, for the Kartik celebrations, that's in a different WhatsApp group. For anybody who's not in that yet, we'll send out another message to this group as to how you join that WhatsApp group if you want to be notified about the daily Kartik classes, which are going on all the way to the end of Kartik. So, Haribol, Dandavats, thank you so much for another beautiful glorification. And I'll hand over to Radhika, Didi, and Pooja. Pooja, you singing as well this time? Oh, she's running. Oh, she's there. Great. So over to you for Kirtan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say, actually, this morning and yesterday, I've been listening. Well, we all have, I'm sure, been listening to Gurudev's Harikatha and him taking us around Braj, and there's a beautiful recording on YouTube of him singing Kirtan. So just a request, I know you do anyway, but if we can just bring our hearts and to hearing Srila Gurudev leading us in Kirtan around Sri Braj Mandal. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jai Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Guru Parampara, Guru Parampara, Guru Parampara, Guru Parampara, Guru Parampara, Guru Parampara, Parampara, Guru Parampara, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Gaura Pramanandi, Hari Hari Bol.